pardon me. We are back in the building. Moving my keyboard here so we won't have that happen again. Anyway, I am Juice Wanna. This is Old Jaw Gritty Grand Strings. We talk about a lot of things, but we mainly talk about secret societies. Pardon me here, didn't know my mic was down so low. Right? Okay. So, we about to get back into this book, The Master's Carpet. I'm looking. The reason why I'm looking over there because I'm seeing how it's popping up, but I'm also looking to the side to see if I get any chats, right? Because I'm also streaming to Twitch. We'll be on Twitch. We on Instagram. We on. Let me show you right here some of the places that we are in. So I would like you to also know that we are on Facebook. We on YouTube. We on Instagram. We on Twitch. We on Twitter. We everywhere, right? Because I want the masses to get out there. So if you wouldn't mind, just hit that like button right there. Hit that. Oh, hold on a minute. Hold on. Hit that subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you can know every time new content is being uploaded. Yes, hit that like, hit it. Don't be afraid. It ain't gonna bite you. No, it's not. We right here. We're about to get into this book, like I said. If you know anything about Freemasonry, the things that I'm saying will make sense to you. If you know a Freemason and you listen to the things that they saying, this right here will bring light to a lot of things that is being said. So what you want to do is, one, either take it from its beginning root and just learn it from scratch, or if you already know by listening to people, this will make things clear for you. So we're up to chapter 11. There's 17 chapters. We're almost done with this book. Now, after we do this book, we have other things. We have other shows. And inside of this book, we will be getting deeper into certain topics that we have done so far. Like 1 through 4 provided us with means of outside information. Now, the stuff that we have been dealing with so far is the structure of Freemasonry itself. So, this is where we're up to for the last, let's say, I want to say 2 to 3 chapters has just been more into the structure and understanding what is actually taking place, right? So let's go. Initiatory ceremonies, Pitterbow conditions of Masonic ministers, rites of inductions, rites of circumambulation, right of secrecy, right. Wait. Masonic idols, Masonic penalties, and idolatrous system, right? So as you know, Mr. Burton is talking to his son and he's explaining to him in so many words what masonry is and how it couldn't be a good thing if it's even preventing him from telling his own son how this works. So he's designed this way to inform, right? So that's why even what he says, if you are not aware of what he's not allowed to say, and then inside of that, you just have to do your research and it will clear up what he's saying. So that's what I do, the clearing up part, right? But this is a great book, The Master's Carpet Mah, right? So, Mr. Burton, behold, now the candidate deacon, doctor of divinity, or Jewish peddler, as he stands in the anteroom, duly and truly prepared to be made a mason. The manual of the lodge, page 20, describes him in his present unavailable position as follows. There he stands without portals without our portals on the threshold of his new Masonic life in darkness, happiness, and ignorance, having been wandering amid in errors and covering up with pollutions of the outer and profane world. He comes equidantly to our door seeking the new birth. So like I told you, as like when you walking into the Masonic Lodge, you understand that you are walking into a vagina, right? So, you know, there's this cords and all of that you are bound in is the umbilical cords in actuality, right? And so, you know, these drabs that you are in is like the placenta, right? So you're representing this new birth. You're ignorant to what you're even being born into, right? Because it's a new birth. You can't be born into something and know what you're doing. So even then, you were ignorant to what you were even doing. You just know that this is what you gotta do to obtain these wealths as you so believe. As he stands in the anteroom, duly and truly prepared to be made a mason, the manual of okay, now my fault. Okay, there he stands. Okay, yeah, his new birth, and under the circumstances is the most lamentable picture of the minister of the gospel, however suitable the humiliating description might be to the rum seller or dancing master, and yet, strange as it may appear, he acknowledges that every word of it is literally true. Right? The junior deacon leads him toward and taking him by the right hand, causing him to close his fist and with his knuckles to give three loud and distinct knocks upon the door. The senior deacon from within is sent to ascertain who gives the alarm, and when he opens the door, demands in a loud voice and somewhat sternly who comes here. The ministerial candidate, not knowing, of course, what suitable reply to make, the junior deacon, who perhaps is a Jew or a scofflaw at the pardon me, at the very where we at a scoffer at the very religion which this same minister preaches, answers for him that he is the Reverend Dr. James Hunt, who has long been in darkness and now seeks to be brought to light. The future of the previous page The figures of the previous page is true representation of the candidate, and he, as he stands in the open doorway of the lodge, and thus trembling, acknowledges his past and present conditions of spiritual ignorance and mental and moral blindness. Inside and regarding him with the closest attention are infidels, Jews, relationists, profane swearers, rum sellers, and rum drinkers. And yet, in the presence of them, all this man who is the pastor of the church publicly professes that all along he has occupied a false position, that his Christianity has been a utter failure, that up to the present moment he has been wandering in darkness and covered over with the pollutions of the outer world and profane world, and that now at last he comes to seek and to receive the true light of divine truth as it is imparted for a certain cash value in a Masonic lodge room. Now, this voluntary confession on the part of the Masonic minister is either true or false. If true, then most unquestionably he is a hypocrite in the church and ought either to resign or to be suspended from the ministry. While if it is false, then it is equally certain that he is attempting to become a Mason under false pretenses, and consequently must be a hypocrite in the lodge and ought at once be expelled from the order. But while the junior deacon answers for the candidate at the door, he must answer for himself during all times to come, and in precisely the very same words, as well as seen from the following position of the Rational Handbook, page 103. Question: being hoodwinked, how did you know it to be a door? By first meeting with resistance and afterwards beginning admission. No, afterwards gaining admission. How gained you admission? By three distinct knocks from without answered. Wait, my fault. By three distinct knocks from without, answered by a like number from within. Question: what was said to you from within? Answer: who comes here? Question: your answer. Now observe carefully the minister's reply. I, James Hunt, who have long been in darkness and now seek to be brought to light. Now, if this confession be literally true, the candidate who makes it cannot possibly be a Christian at the same time. While if it be not true, it is equally evident that no truly pious Christian would ever think to utter such a wicked falsehood. And hence, the inevitable conclusion is that no man can be a true Christian and a true Mason at one and the same time. Well, After a while, the candidate is admitted in the name of the Lord, and then an initiatory ceremony at once began. These consisted of six distinct and separate rites, namely right of induction, right of circumambulation, right of secrecy, right of illumination, right of entrusting, and right of investiture. And like all the preceding ceremonies of all the preparation rooms, every one of these different rights, without a single exception, has been revived from the ancient mysteries and are precisely the very same, the performed too in the very same manner as were practiced in the secret worship of Baal when Ahab fed from, I think it's supposed to be fled from Jezebel's table. Those priests of worshipful master, those priests or worshipful masters who promulgated promulgated that wicked philosophy. In establishing this fact, the teachers of Masonry seem to be uncompromising. They will have it that the Masonic system is the system of the religious incalculated and the ancient initiations or secret worship of the sun god are identical in every feature. And hence, they describe these various initiator rites of Masonry so clearly and refer to the manner in which they were formerly practiced with such minute accuracy that none can fail to understand the meaning. This will appear self-evident as we proceed with our investigation. Right of induction. When the candidate is led into the large room by the junior deacon, he is met inside the door and about 6 feet from it by the senior deacon, who presses the sharp point of the iron, pardon me, sharp point of the iron compass to his naked left breast, and thus while he repeats the following formula, performance the rite of induction. Senior Deacon Dr. James Hunt, on your first admission into the Lodge of Masons, it becomes my duty to receive you upon the point of the sharp instrument pressing your naked left breast. He then presses the sharp point of the compass a little harder against the naked breast. The moral of which is to teach you that as it is an instrument of torture to the flesh, so should the recollections therefore be to your mind and conscience, should you ever presume to reveal any of the secrets of Freemasonry unlawfully. Handbook, page 63 and 64. The figure on page 265 represents the senior deacon and candidate as this ceremony is being performed in its true origin, and the reason assigned for where we at? Candidate ceremony being performed as a true origin, assigned to its performance in the lodge is given by Masonry as follows. In the manual of the lodge by A.G. Mackey, my fault, page 39, I read, in the ancient initiations, that the secret worship of the pagan gods, the candidates was never permitted to enter on the threshold of the temple or sacred cavern in which the ceremonies were to be conducted until by the most solemn warning he had been impressed with the necessities of caution, secrecy, and fortitude. By referring to the language of the Masonic ritual as therefore quoted and performing this rite, it will at once be observed that the very same solemn warning is given the candidate now on the threshold of the lodge room as was given him in the ancient times on the threshold of the sacred caverns, where the initiations into the mysteries were conducted, and that in fact this practical Masonic rite of inductions have been revived from that ancient secret worship without a single change. Again, in Pearson's Traditions of Freemasonry, page 31, the probation of the candidate of ancient rites, i.e., in the mysteries, embraced many important practical particulars. I don't know what the hell am I looking at here. Particulars, right? But principally the fortitude and consistency were severely tried by the applications of sometimes an iron instrument, heated red hot, at others the point of a sword or other sharp instruments, while he himself is deprived all means of defense and protection. Right? And we know that, now actually got another chapter I'm gonna say something. All right, this is precisely what is done in the Masonic Lodge. The candidate deprived of all means of defense and protection. Now, when we said about, I think it was last chapter when we talk about the mob, right? You're walking into these situations, right? To be a made man and you're being made defenseless, right? You're going in this, you're getting picked up. Hey, we're going to take a trip somewhere. It's nighttime. You think of the things that's being said and it'll start to be clear. And like I said, don't limit yourself to not Costa Nostra and all of that stuff, okay? I'm just saying as far as the imagery and movies and stuff like that. Not to say that they not this. I'm just saying don't limit yourself to that organizations, right? Or those organizations. Right. The candidate deprived of all his means of defense or protection is received on the point of the sword, as in English lodges, or other sharp instruments in this act, when coupled with the solemn warning contained in the formula used by the senior deacon, completes the Masonic ceremony, just as used to be practiced in the mysteries. But celebrated Masonic writers, Dr. George Oliver, in describing the Persian institutions of the mysteries, placed the origin of the rite of induction beyond a question. He says in his History of the Institution, page 68, that the successful probationer at the expression of his novidity was brought forth into the cavern of institution, where he entered on the point of the sword presented to this naked left breast, by which he was slightly wounded, and then he was righteously prepared for the approaching ceremony. In this extract, we have not only a literal description of the rite of induction as it was performed in old Persian mysteries and elsewhere, but it also contains a correct account of the manner in which candidates of these mysteries used to be prepared for initiation, and proves with almost infallible certainty that the ceremonies of the Masonic Lodge, and especially this practical rite, has been directly borrowed from that idolatrous worship. Rites of circumambulation. The next ceremony through which the candidate is made to pass is called the rite of circumambulation, or the symbolic pilgrimage in search of light, or in search of light. Before entering upon this dark and fruitless journey, however, two important preliminaries must always be observed. He must kneel, that prayer may be offered for him to the grand architect of the universe by some infidel or saloon keeper, and while kneeling, he must also publicly acknowledge his confidence in the God of the lodge, as he has already at the door publicly declared the uselessness of faith in the God of the Bible. This prayer and confession of faith have already been discussed on pages 164 and 166, and need not be further referred to here, except merely to add that the worshipful master takes him by the right hand, orders him to arise, follows his conductor, and fears no danger. The senior deacon now takes him by the right hand, as you see in the accompanying figure. Right? We see that there, accompanying figure, and conducts him once around the large room in the first degree, twice around in the second degree, and three times and around the lodge in the third degree, the master or chaplain in the meantime reading Psalms 133, alms 7 and 8, and ecclesiastical 10, 12. I mean, my fault, 12, right? Respectively. In dotted lines and the figure on the following pages represents the course they pursue. Starting at the point A, where the candidate has been kneeling, they pass towards the east and thence by way of the south to the west, and so around by the north to the east again, stopping in front of the junior water station in the south at B. This is termed the rite of symbolic pilgrimage, or the rite of circumambulation, my fault. And its origin is escound for as follows by the manual and textbooks of the order. Excuse me. In the Manual of the Lodge by Mackey, page 24, we read, the circumambulation among the pilgrim nations. All right. About to see it right here. Right. See the east. All right. Senior deacon. Right. South junior warden. Right. So senior warden to the west, junior deacon. Right. Okay. Referring to the great doctrine of Sebastian or sun worship, Freemasonry alone has preserved the primitive meaning, which has a symbolic allusion to the sun as the source of physical light and the most wonderful work of grand architect of the universe. The lodge represents the world, and three principals officers represent the sun in her three principal positions. Remember, we saying again that you're in the womb, right? So it's saying her again, right? This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that Masonry is the religious philosophy of old Baal, or sun worship revived, and that the sun god is constantly referred to in this, as it also the other ceremonies of initiations. Again, in Pearson's Traditions, page 32, in the rites of circumambulation, we find another ceremony borrowed from the ancient Freemasonry that was practiced in the mysteries. In ancient Greece, when the priests were engaged in the rite of sacrifice, they and the people always walked 3 times around the altar while singing a sacred hymn. In making these processions, great care was taken to move in imitation of the course of the sun. For this purpose, they commenced at the east, passing by the way of the south to the west, and thence by the north they arrive at the east again. This is the exact description of the Masonic rite of circumambulation, right? Circumambulation, you know, right? In the absence of any further testimony, right? Even in significance of itself to establish the identity of Freemasonry with the ancient mysteries or secret worship of Baal or the sun god, right? So we coming down here. Again, on the same page, we read among the Romans, also the rite of circumambulation was always used in the rites of sacrifice of expedition or purification. And again, on page 33, among the Hindus, the same rite of circumambulation circumcombination. I think I was just saying it. I don't know. I guess after a while you stop being lazy, right? Has always been practiced. Bermenium among, right? It goes where we at here. Rising from no, upon rising from the bed in the morning, having first adorned the sun, while dictating his face to the east, then walks towards the west by the way of the south, saying at the same time, I follow the course of the sun. The same ceremony was in use in the Judaical rites, and priests always made 3 circuits from east to west by the right hand around the altar, accompanied by all the worshippers. And Mr. Grand Chaplain's General Pearson, in explaining the number of revelations to be made in the practical line of march which the candidate must pursue, explains very clearly that true important and the origin of the practical rite. He says, in the tradition of Freemasonry, page 33, it will be well for the Masonic student in the tracing out these allegories, i.e., the allegories between Freemasonry and the ancient mysteries, to constantly bear in mind that in the rite of circumcombination, the number of revelations may and does vary according to different contingencies, although, of course, the number 3 is most important as a mystic and sacred number, but that at all times, the ceremony must be performed with the course of the sun turning to the right and having the altar on the right hand. At this is precisely the manner, as will be seen from the above figure, in which this practical rite is performed. Now, and from the minute descriptions given of it as existed in the sacred worship of Baal, it will be observed at once how anxious our Masonic teachers are to prove that it has been revived without any material change, and that it occupies the very self same position today in Freemasonry that it formerly did in the ancient mysteries, rites of secrecy. Oh, good looking out, Ramsey Bow, for the follow. Okay, good looking. Right. The next ceremony demanding our attention is the rite of secrecy, which is performed in the following manner. The candidate, having passed through the rite of the symbolic pilgrimage and having made the same public confession before the 3 principal officers of the lodge in the south, west, and east, respectively, as he made at the door, he is ordered by the worshipful master or chief Hierophipian. I know I'm probably saying that wrong. Don't get hey. I know I'm saying it wrong. Hierophant. right, to be reconducted to the senior warden in the west, where he is taught how to approach the east by 1, 2, or 3 upright regular steps, as the case may be, and then caused to kneel at the altar in due form. The figure on next page represents the candidate on this due form and the entered apprentice degree kneeling on his naked left knee, his right forming a square. This his left hand supporting the Holy Bible square and compass, and his right resting thereon, in which due form he takes the obligation of a Mason, and which constitutes the right of secrecy. Before him stands the worshipful master administrating the obligation, and behind him the senior deacon or conductor. See handbook, page 73. All right, so we see right here. Hold on, let me take myself away real quick here. All right. Okay, so we see the handshake given, right? We see him kneeling in a right position. See his leg in a right position. Both legs actually in the right position as he takes, and you see the stance. Hold on, let me bring this up. So you see the stance of, the wardens, and right. So let me bring myself back here real quick. All right, let's go. Rights of secrecy, the goddess fights. So as you see, wait, hold on. I don't know if I meant to point that out to you. But you see right there, it says who? And the goddess fights. The due form, of course, like the right of induction and the right of circumambulation, it revives in the different degrees and is correctly represented in the two remaining figures on page 280. And now, what is the origin of this ceremony, and why are Masonic candidates sworn in this particular manner? The Freemasonic Guide on Sickle on page 62 gives us the reason in the following language. Among the ancient, i.e., the mysteries, silence and secrecy is considered virtues of the highest order. The Egyptians worship hypocrites. The gods of secrecy raised altars in his name and weathered them with garlands of flowers among the ancient Romans. To these virtues were not less esteemed and distinguished Latin poets tell us, for faithful silence also there is a sure reward. But in performing this rite of secrecy, it will be remembered and also may be noticed from the figures on the opposite page that the candidate must always face the east and place his right hand upon the Bible square and compass. And in explaining this ceremony, the Masonic authors refer to these two practical features of the rite as identifying it beyond the possibility of doubt with similar customs which prevailed in old Baal worship. Traditions of Freemasonry by Pearson on page 34. An oath an oath taken with the face towards the east, i.e., in the mysteries, have deemed more solemn and binding than when taken with thy face towards any other cardinal point. In the general Ashmere Raison, I fall here, by Sickles, page 34, we read, the right hand has in all ages been deemed an enable of fidelity, and the ancients worship deity under the name fides or fidelity, which was sometimes represented by two right hands joined and sometimes by two human figures holding each other by the right hand. Handbook, see handbook page 89. As the engraving on page 274 illustrating this particular rite, a small figure will be noticed at the top, right? The two hands joined. This represents fighters, the goddess of secrecy. So again, now we start to see the vagina worship where it's telling you she, right? It's her. You starting to hear it, goddess. Right? You can't, the goddess of secrecy, right? You've been in the womb, talk about a rebirth. We've been through these chambers, right? And this idol is displayed in every Masonic lodge and chart and manual of any note in the world. The accompanying figures also of two human figures holding each other by the right hand, at which the above ritual refers to another representation of the god of secrecy and is occupied by Webb's Monitor by Dr. Robert Morris, past Grand Master Pearson of his traditions, page 37, in explaining the use of the right hand in Masonic obligations, refers to this idol as follows. The temple of the goddess Fides was first consecrated by Numa, and when they promised anything of old, they gave the right hand to pledge it. As we do, therefore, she is represented and given her right hand, and sometimes her two hands conjoined. You understand that when you think about when we see, the presidents and all of that, the popes and these type of things, right? So the temple of this goddess Fides was first consecrated by Numa, and when they promised anything of old, they gave the right hand to pledge it, as we do. Therefore, she is represented as giving her right hand, and sometimes her two hands conjoined. Right? Carterius, he says, more fully described by observing that the proper residence of faith and fidelity was thought by the ancients to be the right hand, and therefore this deity was sometimes represented by two hands joined, right? In the Manual of the Lodge by Mackey, page 41, we read, Numa was the first who erected an altar of fads, under which name the goddess of oaths and honesty was worshipped. Obligations taken in her name were considered as more inviolable than any other. And so Freemasonry has not only borrowed or revived the rites of secrecy from the ancient mysteries of Baal, but it also actually borrowed and regards with religious venerations the idol goddess in whose name the obligation or oath of secrecy were always administrated. Right? Before we go into Masonic penalties, let me say once again, my name is Juice Warner. This is Old York Gritty. Grand Strains. As you can see up on top, these are some of the platforms where you can find me on. So I'm asking you to simply just hit the like button. See, like that right there. And you know what happens? We get this. We get the good looking out, right? You showing love, we get the love back, right? That's what we ask you to do. Just hit the like button, hit the notification button, so you can always be notified when new content is either being uploaded or when I'm going live, right? So far, I bounce back and forth on what platforms I'll go live on. Share the wealth, share the wealth. I'm allowed to do 3 at one time, so I share the wealth, right? So anyway, by the way, yeah, please do not hesitate to check out my book, Street Scalzi, Knock 'em Out the Box. It's a murder mystery about two brothers from opposite sides of the law who have to team up to find their father's killer or killers, right? Now, pardon me there, right? So inside this book, we deal with a lot of turmoil. So, it's a father, he's very well loved. So this is not a get rich quick story. This is vengeance and trying to set the record straight before the bad guys get away story, right? So it's a murder mystery. Like I said, check it out. It's a hood book. If you don't mind urban novels, a couple of slang words here and there, check it out. It's a good read. Over 400 pages. Check it out. Peace. All right, so let's get into this Masonic penalties. But there is another peculiar feature of the rites of secrecy, to which all our Masonic writers very minutely refer as connecting it even still more closely in the ancient mysteries of pagan worship. Attached to the Masonic obligations is the most terrible and barbarous death penalties. In the first degree, it is to have your throat cut across and the tongue torn out by the roots. In the second, it is to have the left breast torn open and the heart plucked out. And in the master degree, it is to have the body severed and twain and bowels taken from dents and burned to ashes, right? These horrible penalties under which every Masonic candidate must bind themselves for the disclosure of a stupid, foolish sign or grip of the thumb on a particular knuckle as to revolting to demand any comment, as a celebrated Chicago detective himself, once a Mason, truthfully expressed it. are but simply the wicked consumptions of an outrageous brutality. Why are these sanitary penalties attached to the Masonic degree? And why are Masonic candidates bound by such admirable imprecations, impercautions? We find the answer as usual in the textbooks, the manual of the lodge. In the tradition of Freemasonry by Pearson, page 35, we read, a most solemn method of confirming the oath, i.e., the mysteries, in the person to whom it was administered, and invoking heaven, earth, and sea to witness the ratification. Period. I'm acting like I'm taking dictations. Right. Among the Druid, it was a necessary duty of the bride to unsheath the sword against those who had fortified their obligation by divulging any of the secrets of the order. In this respect, their customs have the same as of all other notifications. The illicits in these extracts are Pearson's own and are evidently intended to terrify Masonic readers into the belief that he is like manner fortified in life should he ever dare to divulge any of the buffoon jugglery of the lodge. And lastly, man, you take that, you think about it. This is the mob. This is, these type of organizations. You thinking you not, right? You thinking it's jugglery. Okay, that's the outside looking in, right? Lastly, in describing the secret initiations of Greece, the vulnerable Dr. Oliver, in his History of Institutions, page 82, gives a clearly insight perhaps than any furnished, right? I'm sorry, furnished for the reason why Masonic obligations are administered and why death penalties are attached. Hold on a minute here. Pardon me. Right. Okay. So let's go. These rights, he say, were known under the high and significant application of the mysteries, and even in them a subdivision had been made because it was thought dangerous to trust the infallible secrets of any but a secret and chosen few who were prepared for the new accession of knowledge by procession at once seductive and Astria bound to secrecy by fearful oaths and penalties of most sanguinary character. Death shall be his penalty who divulges the mysteries. Right? Well, I mean, I don't know if it's for me divulging the mysteries. I'm not a Mason. Right? So let's go. From all the foregoing Masonic testimonies, then, we learn two undeniable facts. First, that every rite and ceremony of the large room so far has been wholly and literally revived from the ancient mysteries. And second, that all the so-called oaths of masonry and made of their administration of position or due form in which they must be assumed, and fearful signatory death penalties attached to each, and even the very image of the idols in whose names these obligations are taken are simply so many pagan customs borrowed from the secret worship of Baal Mah, the Masonic fathers during the period from 1717 to 1738, and therefore, without entering further into any lengthy argument against the legality or validity of these obligations, it will at once be apparent to every honest mind that being sinful and adulterous from beginning to end, they not only are not binding on the conscience of any candidate, but that the very fact of assuming such horrid oaths from the first was a gross violation of the law of God and ought once to be repented of. Right. And assuming the obligation of the fellow craft degree, the candidate has his right hand on the Bible squaring compass and his left hand forming a right angle as the figure 2, while in the masters of all subsequent degrees, both hands rest upon the three great lights. Right. The Bible squaring compass is left forming a right angle in figure 2, while the master in all subsequent degrees, both hands rest upon the three great lights as represented in figure 3. All right. So let me take myself away real quick here. All right. So you see figure 2, right? And you see figure 3, right? See the cord around them and all of that stuff. All right. Okay. Bring me back here. Let's get into this. Oh, so that was the end of that chapter. Okay, so that was the end of chapter 11. Right. So we're at the end of chapter 11. I'm a just bring up my back screen so I'm not going nowhere. So if you see me, later on in the videos and you go, wait a minute, like, nah, I filmed, like, hopefully I will be able to do at least one more. All right. So hopefully I'll be able to do one more. And let me hold on a minute here. Let me, so here we go. All right.